Hi there. Thank you for joining me for my reflection on Leverage Leadership 2.0 by Diversifying and the case study, What Do You Do All Day by O'Malley, Long, and King. As a future school leader, I found this assignment both illuminating and sombering. These texts challenge me to think deeply about the differences between the structured, idealist framework of leadership and unpredictable, human-centered reality that principals face every day. Chapter 5 of Leverage Leadership 2.0 focuses on culture. More specifically, how school leaders build and sustain a strong, positive, and high expectation culture. One of the key takeaways from this chapter is that effective leaders don't wait for culture to just happen. They share it deliberately by setting clear expectations, modeling desired behaviors, and holding staff and students accountable for consistency. The authors emphasize 6 key drives of a strong adult culture: setting clear expectations, practicing follow through, ensuring transparency, celebrating wins, creating aligned systems, and coaching staff. Strong culture doesn't mean zero conflict. It means having the norms, trust, and leadership present to navigate it efficiently. What stood out most to me was the intentionality behind every action. How leaders must plan ahead, anticipate friction, and refine and reinforce the right behaviors respectively to maintain a culture where students can learn and teachers can thrive. The summary of O'Malley's case study. In contrast with the case study, What Do You Do All Day?, which follows a day in the life of early career high school principal, the scenario is intense. Within a single afternoon, the principal is confronted with low math scores that triggered a drop in the school's accountability rating, teacher frustration with low morale, especially in the math and special education departments, equity concerns from parents and students about how Hispanic students and LGBTQ plus students are treated, a struggling teacher on a growth plan experiencing classroom crisis, a politically connected PTA member demanding improvements for local property values. This principal is juggling multiple urgent issues, all while still prepping for a high-stakes meeting with the assistant superintendent the next morning. What this case shows is that no matter how well prepared you are, school leadership will test your ability to prioritize, synthesize, and respond all in real time. Reading these side by side, I had 2 strong reactions. First, how leverage leadership principles are absolutely necessary. Without clear systems, a commitment to equity and proactive culture building, a school can spiral into a kind of dysfunction we see in this case. But second, I recognize that real leadership is messier than any playbook. In Bridge Dune High School, we see the effects of rapid demographic change, systematic underfunding, burnout, and cultural tension, all converging on a new principal who is doing their best to hold it all together. This made me think about a phrase from Leverage Leadership. Culture is what you do when you are not in the room. In this case, the principal's absence from some key areas, like ensuring teachers had inclusion training or setting norms for how students are treated, created culture gaps. When those gaps were not addressed, others filled the void, sometimes with misinformation, exclusion, or blame. In other words, culture happens whether we lead or not. Equity and emotional safety. One area where the case study really challenges us is equity. There's a glaring example of exclusion, special education students being ignored, LGBTQ plus students feeling unsafe, and Hispanic students being scapegoated for test scores. If we approach this only from a data or management lens, we miss the human cost. Leadership, in this case, requires courage and compassion. The willingness to name bias interrupts toxic narratives and builds trust across the difference. As someone passionate about inclusive education, I reflect deeply on how I would respond if I were the principal. Would I create a space for student voices? Would I engage families in dialogue? Would I equip teachers with the training and support they need to teach every student, not just the ones that is easiest to reach? And this case reminded me that equity isn't a side conversation. It must be central to everything that we do. It's important to make sure that your staff is well equipped to teach and engage in students of all different ethnicities, beliefs, cultures, backgrounds, where they come from. Teaching the easiest students obviously is the easiest. However, they are less likely to be gaining something from your teachings. It's the students that struggle or need more guidance or require more in-depth education that grow the furthest, in my opinion. I think that it's important to not only be equal, but be equitable. And the differences can be a little confusing or a little skewed, but equability is what's best for that individual kid isn't always what's best for the other kid. So it's important to understand the takeaways on those parts. Personal leadership takeaways. So what does all this mean for me? First, I recognize the importance of strategic time management. As the O'Malley case shows, it is easy to get caught up in a cycle of reacting. But leadership isn't just about putting out fires, it's about preventing them. This requires carving out time to coach teachers, analyze data, build relationships, and reinforce the values that anchor your school's culture. So always circling back to your staff and making sure that they feel equipped to present the culture of your campus and make sure that they are still representing that and make sure that they still have the buy-in and that they are willing to continue learning and growing to make the changes that are necessary on that campus. I understand that leadership takes humility. As leadership teaches, even great leaders rely on feedback, coaching, and continuous improvement. None of us do this work alone. The early career principals in this case would benefit from mentorship, collaborative problem solving, and a clear support systems from the district. So understanding that principals are met with many fires at one time and having to almost schedule them essentially on how it is that you want to react to each one or whether it's worth reacting to. Is it something that you can put out quickly or is it something that you need to kind of reflect on and study on and see what is the best approach? I think that is very important to make sure that you're not only doing what's best for your campus, but you're also doing what your character represents. Who are you as a person and as a leader? Are you someone who just wants to say, it's going to be fine, and kind of sweep it under the rug? Or do we want to be someone who is more proactive and more willing to, as we say on our campus, be in the trenches and go through it with everyone, realizing that this isn't easy and it isn't always fun, but there's always a bigger picture that we're headed towards. So it's important to realize the chapters are important. However, the entire book is what's going to keep us all unified and on the same page and respectful to one another and encouraging and making sure that we meet all of our tasks and that our students are being treated their best and know their worth and that they are too important. Both of these readings remind me that school leadership is about more than managing tasks. It's about leading people through complexity with clarity, compassion, and courage. My goal is to grow into a leadership role who fosters not just academic achievement, but a culture where every student and staff member feels safe, valued, and empowered to thrive. That's something that's super important to me. I have my mentors here that take it very seriously when I come to them with questions on this leadership role and how do I handle even being a classroom teacher currently. What are some ways to better my management style, or what are better ways to build these relationships with students that they understand that I notice when they're absent, or I notice when they aren't feeling well, or when things maybe aren't going their way for them. I find that it matters when you are visible and you make students feel visible and staff members and your colleagues feel visible as well. It can be upsetting to think that you're kind of in this role on your own and that everybody kind of looks to you to solve the problem. But if there's other people that can take pieces of it off of your plate, I'm sure that's what we're wanting. We're wanting everyone to have a piece of the pie. So both of these articles were really interesting. I appreciate it. Thank you.